Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage, and today we are diving into one of the topics a lot of you have asked for, and that is doing map tuning on the 4th gen platform. Today in particular we're looking at the E38 ECU as used on a 2009 Z06. This is one that has two MAF tables, which is kind of cool, but the steps between the different Gen 4s is all going to be kind of the same. So if you for some reason do not have the tables that we are addressing here on your Gen 4, by all means hit up the comments below. Tell me what platform you were using that did not have these tables. Let me know. I'll do a video on it just to help you guys out. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button down in the corner. Fair warning though, you hit that button, you're going to learn how to tune. So if you don't want to learn how to tune, don't subscribe. I'm just going to save you the heartache of, learning something new here. That being said, if you find this video or any of my videos helpful, I ask that you hit that thumbs up button. That helps to get this exposed to more people, lets me know I'm doing a good job to provide great content to you guys. And by all means, share this if you want. I don't care. I appreciate it when people do, because that's what organically grows the channel and helps me produce more content. So, that being said, before we jump into this particular platform where I've got everything kind of opened up here so I can throw it on there, I've got to rock a disclaimer out so you guys know, hey, we are going in, changing parameters and tuning. There is the potential to do damage to our video.
This video is intended for educational purposes only. Improper tuning can cause catastrophic mechanical damage, and you should do your own research before attempting any changes like this to a vehicle. Attempt custom tuning at your own risk.
Okay, now that that's out of the way, I have opened my 2009 Corvette Z06 stock configuration. This is a brand new Z06 that we're going to go out. We're going to tune the mass airflow sensor because I put a 5-inch air intake on it, and that thing's just not running worth the crap. Maybe some Cook's 2-inch headers, some high flow cats. I've changed the way that this thing breathes air, and because MAF is the easy thing to tune for, we're going to go ahead and tune that thing first. But if we look at the tables as set up here, you'll see that we've got two. One of them that goes from 1,000 up to about 5,800, and then the other one's going to be the high table, which goes from 5,800 up to 12,000 and some. But that being said, what we want to do is, if you have not already pulled your stock tune out of your ECU and saved it as an as found, do that, and then we will move into saving the step 1 tune. So I'm going to go ahead and say, save as Z06 step 1 MAF. That's the way I know what I'm doing on this, and I have a reference tune because we're going to make some adjustments here to enable MAF only. And we're going to start in the dynamic airflow. Basically, we want to make sure that we are just using mass airflow only. We don't want to be dipping into volumetric efficiency tables or speed density tables while doing this. And in order to do this, we've got these two parameters that we can adjust. One being the high RPM disable. It says above this RPM, use filtered MAF air mass for prediction calculations. So we're going to lower that down to 100. And that way, anything over 100 RPMs, we are using that MAF air mass. And then we have the re-enable that says, if enabled, RPM must drop below this point to re-enable air mass prediction calculations. So, this shouldn't be an issue because this is a re-enable, but we will go ahead and adjust this one out also. So, RPM must drop below this point to enable air mass prediction. So, let's go to 8,000 RPMs on that one. The big one being the high RPM disable. Above this RPM, use filtered air mass for air mass prediction calculations. Make sense? Good. Okay, now let's jump over to our fueling. This is the important stuff. The first one is underneath oxygen sensors on our O2 readiness. We want to max this out so our O2 readiness never goes into effect. This basically locks out our narrowband sensors. As you can see, this maxes out at 493. This is an engine coolant temp based one. So if we bring this up to 400, actually I meant to do that up here. Oh, well, that works too. 400 equal. We should never hit 400 degrees on there. Same ordeal with the long-term fuel trims. Our minimum ECT, it says LTFT learn is disabled below this engine coolant temp. So let's max this one out. That way it's disabled. Then it says will be disabled above this engine coolant temp. So let's drop this down to 10 degrees. Anything over 10 degrees, we're going to be disabled. We're not going to have long-term fuel trims affecting our fueling. Next thing that we need to look for is our temperature control. We want to disable our cat over temp protection. That actually allows for some fuel situations in which it'll enrich in the fuel blend to help cool off the cats. We don't want that to happen while we're trying to tune our fueling. That will throw our wideband off. Same ordeal with fuel deceleration, fuel cutoff. In this situation, it is a manual transmission vehicle, so we're going to have clutch fuel cutoff. We can max this thing out to 300 miles an hour, and we can also bump up the RPMs to keep it from happening. If you are in an automatic, though, you're going to have this DFCO. We'll do the same thing. Enable ECT. We will, says above this ECT, DFCO will be allowed, so we want to max this out to 400 degrees. And on the disable, we can do below this ECT, so let's make this 399. Now we know DFCO is disabled, and that is basically where it goes full lean whenever you let off the throttle. And we can do the redundancy of the enable and disable RPM, but we don't actually need to. We should be good to go on here. As usual, if you have DOD on your vehicle, make sure it's disabled. Period. Not just for this. Just don't run DOD. It's junk. It's terrible. Bad idea. So, that being said, we save this again. This is step one. We're going to save it. We're going to flash it in. Go ahead and write it into our vehicle. And then now we need to go set up our graphs so we can start logging our mass airflow. So if we open up our scanner, what we need in there is our mass airflow sensor. You need to make sure that you are logging the sensor. It is in frequency. It is the hertz reading. That is what we're going to build the table off of. And then, of course, we need our wideband and our EQ ratio commanded. If you are utilizing AFR, you will use AFR commanded as opposed to EQ ratio. But in this case, we got EQ. We want to tune in EQ if possible, so we're tuning in EQ. So let's go into our graphs, right-click on there, graph layout, and let's add a graph, add a table. So for our parameter, we want to find our EQ error. If we search for it, we will find, actually we don't want to use that one. Let's just go all the way down to our MAF. Our math, I should say. Underneath lambda and AFR, you will have EQ error ratio. Ratio error, same thing. I like to bump the decimals out to 2 places, and I will do 10 cell hits to begin. As I get this dialed in a little bit closer and I know that things are looking good, I might lower this down to 5 cell hits. This is just how many cells it requires to populate data to actually see it. So in this case, I'm going to put it down to 5 because I know that this tune doesn't have a lot of logs hit on it, but as I said, normally I would start about 10. Shading, for our high value, I'm going to do 10. For our low value, I'm going to do a negative 10. And then for the low one, I'm going to put a pretty little green in there to let me know that I'm rich. And for my high, I'm going to put a angry little red in there. Now, what we need to do is add in our parameter for our column axis. This is going to be that mass airflow sensor that I just told you about. So if we type in mass, we want to find sensor, but we want to find the one that says frequency. That's important. Sorry, that window is outside of there. There we go. We want the one that says frequency. So you see how there's a mass airflow sensor with voltage. We want to find frequency. If it asks you to use the generic one, go ahead and use the generic one. No harm in that. Now what we need to do is jump back over to our editor, go back underneath our airflow, general tab, and our frequency low table. Open it up, come over here to the corner, and let's right click on that, and then under column axis, we can copy the labels over. So we want to copy that. We will now jump back over to our scanner, and we're going to paste that underneath values. Boom. So this is our first table. We're going to put in here MAF error low. So we know this is the low error table. And we're going to save this selected graph. So there we go, MAF error low. The cool thing that we can do now is if we use the open option, open layout file here, and open the one that we just saved, we will have a copy of it. What we want to do is change this one to high. Come in here. You can do Control A to select all those numbers and delete them. Now we'll jump back over to the tune, close out our low frequency map, and open up our high frequency. We're going to do the same thing though. We're going to copy, right click over here in the corner, copy axis labels, column axis labels, and then we can go back to the scanner and paste those in. So now we have the 2 tables. We have the low frequency error table and the high frequency error table. So if we come in here and look at this data that's already been loaded, we see that we are running a little bit lean throughout most of it. There's a couple spots where it's just on the rich side. That's pretty good though, 77.77. That's not even 1%. And then there's one spot down low. This tune doesn't go very high in the MAF table, and it may not. You know, if we look at This is pretty conservative, only a couple thousand RPM. So this guy, whenever he was pulling this, thank you for supplying the log, by the way, Chris. Whenever he was doing the logs, he's just been going out doing partial throttle logs. The big thing, whenever we do scanning for the mass airflow sensors, we want to do very slow, deliberate throttle pulls from basically idle up to wide open throttle if possible. If you get too aggressive on the throttle, you can jump ahead on this table and it'll have a hard time pinpointing the actual error spots where they should be on the table. So the more deliberate that we can lean into this table or lean into the throttle to populate this table, the better off. And then, you can try and focus on one table and then the other table on a different log. You can break this up however you want. But now that we have some values in here, we're going to come in here to our airflow table, click the little box in the corner to highlight it, and copy that thing over. So we'll copy it, jump back over to our tuner, and make sure that we have our, low table opened up, because that's the one we copied, and we will use our good old paste special, multiply by percent dash half. There we go. We've got the low table edited now. We can close that one out, open up the high table, do the same thing, jump over to the scanner, copy over our high table. We're really only copying one thing here, but we still want to highlight the whole thing just to be safe, make sure we didn't miss something. And we will do our paste special, multiply by half. Boom, we're done. So now we save this as step 2, flash it in to our tune, onto our ECM, and then go out and rinse and repeat till we get this thing. I like to get my mass airflow sensor dialed in pretty accurate, because the cool thing about mass airflow sensors, they're very, very accurate. Humidity, altitude, temperature, all these things, they will directly affect the mass, but your mass airflow sensor will correctly read the mass. So the cool thing about it is, unlike speed density, is all those corrections are built into the fact that we are reading mass. So this is the quick and easy way to get your mass airflow sensor up and running. And if you are in a situation where you need to get your vehicle running as soon as possible, mass airflow sensors are the best way of doing it. That is the way. You can literally go out, do about 3 logs on the mass airflow sensor, and have these things really dialed in. If I get this thing dialed in 1 to 1.5 degrees to the rich side, I'm super happy. If I get this thing dialed in where it's spot on, I'm super happy. And then if I need to, I can always come back in and adjust the table. So this is an airflow reading. So say I've got this thing dialed in pretty much spot on, and I want to add a little bit of fuel in there. I can come in here and put 101. That's 1%. If I multiply that, I shifted this whole table, which means I've added 1% fuel to my MAF curve. That makes sure that I run in that 0.99 range, which means I like to stay below the 1, on my lambda, and that's just personal preference. But, that's kind of the process that I'm going to go through whenever I do this. Whenever we're all said and done, though, we can open up our compare file, which would have been the stock or the as found that we originally found, and we can come back through, fix our dynamic airflow settings. So if we look at this, there were 4,000, 3,900. We want to re-enable it. We can come back in 4,000, 3,900. Oops. Same ordeal. We need to go over to our fuel, oxygen sensors for our long terms. If we want to turn the long terms back on, it's 102, 284. 102, 284. Whoa. 284. There we go. And then on our readiness, these were -40. Highlight this whole thing, put a -40 in, make it equal. Come down here, temperature control, re-enabled cat over temp if we have catalytic converters. If we don't, you can leave that disabled. 86 and 77 for our DFCO, 86, 77. If you have a manual transmission, you can re-enable your clutch fuel cutoff, 6 and 1,000, so 6 miles an hour, 1,000 RPMs. And that should be basically it in this situation. So now our MAF tuning is done. We can load that in, or we can start our speed density tuning, which there's another video for that. But if you want to get a leg up on speed density, make sure and check out the tuning guide, the full playlist down below, where I go into the generic speed density tuning. You know, it's like video number 4, I think, in the tuning guide. There's also a MAF generic one in there that touches on a lot of this stuff that's not specific to the 4th gen. There's more along the lines of what you would see on a 5th gen. The last thing that we want to do after we do all of these things is we want to come in and underneath your diagnostics and info, actually it's under your vehicle controls and special functions of your scanner. I can't show you because I'm not connected to a vehicle, but you want to reset your long-term fuel trims whenever you re-enable your long-term fuel trims, because your long-term fuel trims will be off to correct for what your fueling was before you did the tuning. If you re-enable them, they will still be off even though your tuning is now dialed in. And they will make everything look like it's off until they relearn. By resetting them, we just start them back to 0. And if there is any learning to be done, it learns from 0 as opposed from learning from the original corrections. So that is basically it. If you have any questions, once again, hit up the comments down below. If this did not match up with your Gen 4 platform, hit up the comments. Let me know what your platform is. Give me a year, make, model. And that way I can go out and look at a tune and maybe throw together a video that goes specifically into that one for you. If you found this video helpful, make sure you throw that thumbs up. And by now, surely you've subscribed, because if you haven't, you're missing out on the opportunity to learn how to tune. That being said, you can check out our Patreon down in the links in the description. Love you guys for supporting me. And make sure and stop by Thursdays at 8 Eastern for the live show. The more people, the merrier. Great place to air out any questions that you may have on tuning. We've been trying to dive into pulling up information more and more as we go through that. But that being said, I want to say ABT, always be tuning, and thank you as always for stopping by the garage.